Being 8:39, I call the Valley High Operating Committee meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Reno,
Here, yes.
Mr. Sullivan,
Here.
Ms. Vanhoff,
Here.
and myself, Carl Kaminsky. We have a quorum. We'll begin the meeting. Do I have a motion to bring in Mr. Shorten, Ms. Krieger, and Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second. Yes.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Any public comment? Seeing none on the sheet, we'll move to members' comment.
I have a member's comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Reno.
I just want to emphasize my concern that these funds with Valley High are protected, and that we know that should federal funds be cut and other budgets be hit, that this wouldn't be a piggy bank that they'll go after. And I would love if we could continue to pursue how we can have that in place. And so that's just my comment, that I just want to make sure that we keep this top of mind. So I'll be going over and over and over it. So thank you.
All right, moving on to the routine consent agenda.
Need to approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
No worries.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
And second? Ms. Greeno? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we want to take this out of a little bit of an order here? And go right to Carrie's presentation?
We'll
Or
do routine consent agenda first,
all right,
because
let's,
you're gonna lose a voter,
right.
and then Gary can take the floor.
We're going to move to number 6.1. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda? Do I have a second?
So moved.
And can we have a roll call, Ms. Bow?
Oh, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I should have asked if somebody wanted to remove it. I'd like to remove it and discuss it, please.
Oh, yes.
I got a couple questions.
All right, my mistake.
That's okay.
All right,
So are
open-
we amending the motion to discuss?
yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Collins.
So I just want to make sure, I don't see a specific dollar amount on here. And we had talked about this at the last meeting about resolutions don't have a specific dollar amount listed. It talks about not exceeding the budget, but are we locked into a certain amount of spend with this company based on the contract?
No, there's no minimum to spend, and this is the odds and ends things, like a wheelchair armrest or a wheelchair handbrake, like the little parts and supplies, as well as large equipment. But the one thing that we got to keep in mind with any medical supplier, whether it's the ancillary or the primaries, the anything that is above a couple $1,000s comes before you guys as a formal resolution anyway, as an equipment thing. So if you would like me to get the budget, what we put in the McHenry County operating budget or the Valley High operating budget into this resolution, I can do that. But as far as trying to handicap what we're going to spend, we have no idea what we're going to need until we need it.
Okay, so I don't necessarily want to, I'm not sure putting the number in there's a good idea, because that may then create a different issue, but I just want to make sure that, one, that above the dollar amount that's required will come before us, which you said it will, and I know it will anyways. Two, that this is just ancillary type equipment that's going to be in the small dollar range, like you talked about.
Yeah, unless it's a large piece of equipment, but that comes before you. Yeah,
Right, perfect. Okay, I'm satisfied then. Thank you.
sure.
My question's been answered. Carl.
Should we call the vote? Do I?
Do roll call.
So we need
Yeah,
a
roll call.
resolution.
Vanhoff,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Greeno,
Yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Kaminsky,
Yes.
Shorten.
Yes.
Okay, now, if for the time that we're gonna have, if no one has a problem with taking things out of the agenda in a different order, like to go to Carrie to give her presentation? If that's okay with everybody?
Now, I know the question on the table from the last meeting was if we could move funds. So I just kind of wanted to give a quick overview, really building on what we did last month with the fund balance policy. And I always get excited when I have the opportunity to talk about it. So this should just be a minute, but before we really dig into Valley High, I just want to talk about
You muted, you should mute.
Um, and as I said, this was in the fund balance policy that we talked about last month. But just really quick, the types of funds that we deal with at the county, we have them broken into these different categories. The general fund, which is really the one we talk about a lot, it's our biggest fund, the primary operating fund. Then we have 41 special revenue funds, and those are funds that have designated revenue sources and also restricted use of that revenue. We have a capital fund that's just specifically for our capital project. 8 custodial funds, which really just means we're holding money that's not ours. So they're in our financial statements, but we don't do a lot with them because a lot of it's in and out, or things that we're responsible because we have the money in our bank, but we don't really. You guys don't really have control of those funds. Internal service fund, that is our health insurance fund. So all of the general and special revenue funds and the enterprise funds put money into that fund, and then that fund pays out the insurance and the wellness benefits. And then the enterprise funds, we have 2 of them. Those are more like you would expect the public sector or private sector. It's like a business. So this again was in the policy from last month, but I just wanted to revisit it really quick because I think it's a good visual when we talk about like how many months of reserve are in the general fund. And when we talk about that, that's that bottom section, that unrestricted fund balance, because that really is, there's no restrictions to those, or there's very little restrictions that the board can easily remove with action. And then that top section, when it says restricted, and I know we ran into a little bit of confusion when we were talking with the mental health. So all special revenue funds, their revenue falls into that restricted section. But that doesn't mean that like mental health can't use that money because it's restricted. It just means that it's restricted for use for mental health activities. So the board couldn't vote to move $2 million from that fund to the general fund.
I have a question, if it's okay. Just what you mentioned about the custodial funds. Now, those are trustee accounts, right?
Yes.
For the residents.
Well, we have
Is it just
several different custodial funds. So one of them is the Valley High Resident Fund. The treasurer has the collector's account when everyone pays in their tax money, and then she pushes it out to the districts. Payroll agency. So when you pay for your health insurance off your paycheck, or whatever other benefit, it goes into payroll agency, and we hold on to it and then pay out, whether it's HSA or whatever type of benefit. So it's a lot of just in and out.
Okay.
And then I think we have sheriff has a forfeiture fund that we're holding on to. It's for the state.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so we have 2 enterprise funds. The major enterprise fund is Valley High. That's what we're here to talk about. And I think, Terry, last month at Finance, you had kind of started to ask about this, about like a balance sheet or income statement. And so the enterprise funds, really the point is like a business. You want to generate revenue that's gonna cover the, cost of your expenses and your operations. So, I mean, again, this is really quick, and I'll pass these out.
Gary, do you, was this a little PowerPoint program
Yeah.
that you're, is there a way you can email it out?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
great.
So the financial report is out on our website. I have a link here, so when I send it to you guys. So all of the information is in the financial report, and we're actually working on the 24 one right now, so this is 23. So again, I just wanted to show you that it's out there it's easiest to find stuff, I think, if you go to the finance off the website, and then you can see budgets or these financial reports. So the statement of net position is really like the balance sheet for these enterprise funds. So that's what I passed out, what's up there, because I knew you would be able to read it. So it's just the total net position. I don't know if you have questions. And then the next one is really the income statement, but we call it like the change of net position. So if you see down at the bottom, Valley High started out 22 at just under 37 million, and then they finished at 35.7. So you can look at these, and if you have questions,
I do.
okay.
I had been asking about the 911 fund. I know that has nothing to do with the board. And then here it is.
Yes.
So,
E91 is the other enterprise fund.
is that different from 911? Or this is the E911?
So Valley High is on the first column. So the statement of net position is just the type of report for enterprise funds. So that's why you see.
Can you go back to that screen, Carrie?
Oh, sure. Both Valley
Come on,
High and, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Hold on. This is what I handed out. This is from the actual document. So this is what Terry's
Okay.
talking about. So the major enterprise fund is Valley
I
High.
have that online, I could forward it to them. Can I do it? Do you have to email it to them so
Oh,
they
sure.
can see it?
And then the non-major enterprise fund is the 911.
So E911 is different from this, or it is the same? I mean, you said E911, this is 911. I
Oh, I'm
just wanna make
sorry.
sure that
I'm
it's
sorry. It's the
thing.
same. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
ETSB, E911, 911, it's all the same.
Okay. And just, wanna make sure, so this is the one that there is tax levied on everybody's cellular bill, that the money goes into to fund services for whatever.
Yeah, well, it's not a tax levy. It's just a user fee, like on
Okay.
your.
But I mean, a thing that we all see on our bills, and it goes in here.
Correct. Actually, if you actually look at your cell phone bill, you see the E911 surcharge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot of money. And I know that again,
Yes.
that's not our money, at the county board level, but I think people seeing this, constituents seeing this, and nobody really understanding, what is that out there?
Right, so the thing you have to remember with the special revenue funds, the enterprise funds, they have to operate all within the revenue that they receive, whether it's a tax levy or a user fee. And so there was some legislation, and I'll have to get you all the detail because I think it just changed, where they increased the surcharges pretty significantly. And I thought it was supposed to sunset, but they may have pulled that back. So a lot of these funds, I'm sure across the state, have gotten pretty large, but they're doing a lot with the infrastructure and the PSAP. I can have TP give you more information. And I do know from this fund, they do have, it's a PSAP reimbursement grant, and the county just got, the general fund just got $1 million for the telecommunicators salary reimbursement. So they are pushing it out. It's just, I think it's a little hard when you have these huge technology requirements and you're really reliant on the state to set your surcharge fee, and if they pull that back, you know, they have to keep operating, so.
And I just wanted to ask other board members, were you guys aware of this fund? Did you know that there was $16-17 million
It's
and that this was coming?
in previous budgets.
Well, it's not really in our budget.
Well,
So-
yeah, when you delve deep into it, there is some information there.
Okay, because I just wonder, out of the 18 members, how many have ever even heard of it, understand it, noticed it, and
To be
what it
honest,
is?
up until last year's budget, no.
Yeah,
But learning from your site, still don't understand it, but to answer your question,
well, you know what, we're not the only ones, because when I started asking questions, nobody was like, oh, you have to talk to Tiki, which I haven't gotten around to, but, so I just think it would be really good, because it's a good thing to know and to understand
Yeah.
versus, that's 17 million, right?
We can,
So-
I can talk to Tiki, and maybe she could do a presentation at Finance Committee, just to give you a better understanding as to
Yeah,
how the
don't
fund
you think
operates.
that would be helpful?
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that they operate the infrastructure that 911 runs on,
Exactly.
and all the upgrades. So there's a lot behind those numbers, but I think I'll certainly see what I can do to facilitate that discussion and presentation, at maybe Finance and Audit or whatever would be appropriate. Because I know you're on Finance and Audit, correct?
I'm a what?
You're on Finance and Audit
Oh,
Committee?
yeah.
So maybe that would be a good place to start, so I'll see what I can do on that end, and then we can focus it on
It's
Valley
really
High.
interesting to listen to her because there's so much where, you pick up the phone, dial 911, but all the stuff that happens, so I think that would be good for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, back to Valley High, but they are both enterprise funds. Okay, so that's out on the website. I don't know if you guys have questions, if you wanna look, and if you wanna come back with questions, and again, this is old, this is from 23. We're working on 24 right now, the last big piece is, fixed assets and depreciation. So once we get that, we can at least probably have a preliminary report for you guys to see for 24. But I know that you guys worked a lot in prior years to kind of start working on spending down some of this. And you see that when it went from 37 to 35.
Wait, spending down here?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I'm just,
Well, I mean, the
It's doing a great job.
financing the,
yeah. But,
I knew that's what she meant. Like, right now, we're paying for our projects out of that fund. And actually, if you look in your packets, there's a current, through the end of the calendar year, fund balance report. And that came from the treasurer's office, so it'll give you a feel for how much we still have sitting in the total account, including investments.
and that pretty much parallels with, what Mr. Hartman had crossing when we decided to pull the trigger to have the memory here. Here, one quick, I see all these line item numbers, and we got this money, and we got that money. When you start adding all of it together, that's a large sum that's sitting in the bank. We are getting the interest of that chunk of, coin, aren't we?
well, you're getting bank interest, and also I know that Tom's been working with Treasurer Kurtz to invest it.
Right.
So it's being put to good use.
Yeah, it was not quite a year ago, we talked to the Valley High Operating Committee about an investment strategy, and we had Treasurer Kurtz come in
Yeah.
and really got some direction from the committee to keep a certain amount of just reserve in cash.
Well, that I understood from what she did, but some of this is deferring to us, the county, like you said, the general fund and this, and payroll, and, we got this chunk of money, it's.
So it's never mixed. So Valley High's money everything stays within Valley High.
But across the county, we got that sitting in a bank, we're getting interest for all that money, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Treasurer Kurtz is doing very well.
Yes, she's investing a lot and really
Yeah, and
taking advantage of this
The current market.
Yeah.
You know, and we can talk, I think, after this, we can touch on the investments and follow up on some of our discussions, because we meet periodically with Treasurer Kurtz. I think what Carrie just mentioned is really relevant to this conversation, is that the Valley High Fund that you're talking about, that runs this facility, is in its own silo. It's in its own walls. It is not commingled with the general fund or any other fund. And so all the money that comes in here, really, that is. So
It
the question,
stays within
is it-
here.
Is it protected? It is protected insofar as the county board's policies make sure it's protected. And so it's, it's not used in, to help offset some other, county operations. We do charge back in certain areas, some of the cost to Valley High, such as insurance, but, it's within the four walls, basically, of the fund sheet and within this facility. So, Carrie, back to you.
Okay, well, that's actually perfect. So it's like we practiced, but we didn't.
Well, good.
And we still do the $500,000, right?
Well, that is actually, so I guess the question that was asked was, can this money be used for something outside of Valley High? And the kind of quick answer is no. Like, you can't just decide as a board to say, some of that 36 million that's sitting there, we want to transfer that to the general fund. That is something that's not allowed just over the gap. So
Was that policy changed within the last
it's
few
not
years?
a policy like by the board, that's just accounting rules.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. So what did change, and maybe this is where, and I know the 500,000. So some of the things that we could do to move money from Valley High to general fund would be reimbursing overhead costs, which we've talked a lot about this, where it's like, where do you stop with the overhead? Which funds, like, do we just focus on the enterprise funds? Do we focus on all special revenue funds? Because right now, Valley High pays their portion of, like, the copier lease and the telephones, and so does DOT, but the other special funds don't. So I think we need to really talk about, I don't know, I don't think we can pick and choose, are we gonna charge mental health overhead but not special courts, or, come up with something like that, and maybe even if we just focus on the enterprise funds, because that actually, and this leads to what you were saying, this is in our current budget policy, that we can allocate costs from the enterprise funds for overhead. And 2 years ago, we budgeted 500,000, but really what it came down to was the general fund had a really strong reserve. The 500,000, that was before my time. I think it was just, it wasn't a well planned out number. I think it was just stuck in there. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing, but that would be the only avenue, I guess, for moving money from Valley High to the general fund.
I don't, like, when you look at an organization like this, and you look at a reserve, it's not the same as it is when we're looking at our general fund and reserves there. Because this is an entity with people's lives, and it is, again, not, I'd say, profitable. I mean, like, probably many of these organizations are very tough to, when it's all said and done, make a profit. It's here to provide a service, and we have to protect that. And so if we have the fortune, because of timing and investments and management, to have a healthy reserve, and again, we do not know what is going to happen with that, you keep that. Anybody who just lived through 2024 knows that, because they go in a minute with things that can happen. And so even on something like allocating costs, $500,000 seems a little high to me. And I wouldn't want to be, it would need to be consistent throughout, and it would also need to be specific as to what that is. It's not just hey, let's just throw a number out there. And
That's why we ultimately decided to not do the transfer.
May I just say, I think a lot of, and Tom, you were here when that came about, or not, so you probably have more insight on that than anyone, but I do think a lot of thought went into that, and when we when we look at these financial reports like what, you did last, year, Scott, that question always, I mean, I've only been, here for 2 years, but every time we look at the budget, we hear about that $500,000 that, Valley High is paying back to, so, do you wanna shed a little light on how that came?
They didn't pay it back.
Yeah,
We
it-
budgeted for it, and they never did the transfer.
The transfer was not done?
That's correct, it was not made. The intent was, because of the way the budget was shaping up, there was gonna be a gap with the general fund. The logic was, Valley High, while it runs as an operation and business, is still using county IT, still using county HR for recruitment, still using all other internal services. And, just like any business, if you had a business and you needed IT support, you would be paying for that. So the thought, it was basically going to be that internal service chargeback. $500,000 was put in there as a budget estimate. The methodology to determine what that would actually be wasn't developed by budget time, but you need to put a budget number in, and that's
So
the
it was,
intent.
it was budgeted, but it was like never really
But-
transferred
It was
from-
never, as the fiscal year shaped up, it was clear that that was not gonna be needed, so then it was not, the trigger was never pulled on that chargeback, for internal administrative services.
So it's still just sitting there?
In, that was, credit
No,
period
it's not, it's, that was in 20,
23,
Three.
23 budget.
23.
And, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not appeared in your budget since.
no.
So it was just that one time, it wasn't needed, it wasn't utilized. Your most recent budget doesn't include that chargeback. The model, used to have a line item anticipating that that would be something that would be ongoing. That's out of the model, just because of how things shaped up. Now, you could always make a policy decision to invoke that, but of course, I think we wanna give some good thought as to how we would develop that figure,
Yeah.
the equity among other funds, and so on and so forth. But once again, that's as a board, that's your decision, right? That's not, something that somebody can just do and just pull out.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all I have. Unless you guys have more questions.
One, and not sure if it goes, you part of it, but how do we ensure that we never have a situation where we take money from Valley High and try to give it back to the taxpayers?
Like what happened before?
That was board action.
That was a board resolution, and to do
Because I'm taking it what you say is, you can't touch this as its own entity, but yet dollars went flying out the door. Want to make sure we never do, so you get that graph going back up again.
Yeah. As a board, the McHenry County Board made that decision to reduce the fund balance, which at that time was hitting around $40 million, just shy of $40 million. And there is something you have to be careful of as a government and as a taxing body, that overfunded reserves can be a liability. You can get sued if you're taxing, issuing a property tax for a purpose, and you have a fund balance reserve that's too high, and we can discuss what too high is. Taxpayers can sue you, and then you would actually have to give that back, because you can only tax up to a certain amount. And at that time, and this was in 2019, the thought was, at $40 million, the county board had stopped issuing a property tax for Valley High, because there is, right now, it's $10,000, right? Every tax levy, $10,000 is a nominal amount, just to keep that backstop in place, right? This is a service that's provided, and it's been self-sustaining, and this committee's in charge of making sure it's self-sustaining, and the county board wants to make sure it's self-sustaining. But in the event that things change, or, maybe the landscape of Medicaid funding changes, and you feel that the service is warranted, you have that ability to tax. We maintain that in the tax levy, you maintain that in the tax levy by a nominal amount of $10,000. But if you start levying, say, $2 or $3 million for Valley High, and you have a fund balance reserve that's built up, taxpayers can say, no, you're overfunded, that, you can't be taxing me, and there are tax lawsuits that get filed. In fact, that's a routine occurrence. You can talk to Treasurer Kurtz, because she's always the one getting sued. Even it could be a school district or any other entity, but they sue the treasurer because of someone say, somebody taxing than when they shouldn't have, if they have an overfunded reserve.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of that, and that was kind of one of the thoughts that went into this rebate, is to say it is a lot of money, and too much money is a liability for a government. It's really the bottom line, so keep that in mind, because these are public dollars. And, if you're holding onto these public dollars, is that right to your public? Right, so you've gotta be good stewards of that, find out what is the right balance, legally, what should you hold? And at that time, there's a very obscure mechanism, I say obscure, you have to work through the statute of how you can release, essentially tax dollars back to, or revenues from any other source, as that's what we described, back to the hands of basically in this case, the homeowners. And we followed that statute, we followed that process, and the board approved the rebate program, we implemented the program. So, but that was strictly board discussion, board action. Your predecessors made that decision, and, we did it. And, yeah.
So,
That's cool, it's just that your model showed, if we didn't do this, we would be sitting a little bit better. This was done, now, hey, guys, we gotta really pay attention, and I don't wanna see us get to that, I'd rather see us, that he can go say, yeah, we can put an addition on now.
Right, and and I think that gave you the confidence to approve the memory care unit because you had the cash. You didn't have to go out for debt, you didn't have to finance it. You had the cash, and then you saw the impact of what that would be onto your fund balance, and so we can still do this and be in a good position to maintain that financial sustainability. So this facility is running with great management, I'd like to add,
Yes.
Running on its own and is not supported, as we sit today, by the taxpayers.
so, just to maybe poke at that just a little bit, you were saying something about it being taxpayer dollars, and when I look at the operating revenues here, they come maybe indirectly as taxpayer dollars and Medicaid, but generally it's revenue that's generated by the services provided. It's not like a levy that's been put on the local taxpayers. I love the idea, if we could only have every government entity find a way to operate and regenerate revenue to have virtually no levy because they have done such a great job and had found a way to add value that brings revenue in to cover the services that they're giving back to people. But this is just such a great example, and you could build a case of, there was a surplus in fund. What is a one-time thing that we can do to benefit the taxpayers of McHenry County that would fall under this umbrella of types of services? And I'm being silly, but, senior bicycles for everybody, I don't know. But versus this idea of it's taxpayer money to give back, I don't necessarily look at this like that. And again, in that it's gone to Washington and come back through Medicaid or state or whatever on that. So I know that we're not near anything that would be something that would be excessive, especially, you just look at what's the burn rate. Oh, wow, like 2.3 years, not even. So, and I could be wrong on that, but you know what I'm saying. So, anyway, I just want us to all be really well educated when we're looking at this and to be able to address it when it comes up in conversations with constituents or other board members. So, this is a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I think you said being silly. You're not being silly whatsoever. You're thinking about this exactly the right way. You all are business owners or business managers. You know how to run a business. This is a business, right?
Yes.
This has it generates its revenue based on the services it provides. It has costs, operating expenses, and you think of it, when you think of Valley High, you have to think of it in those terms. We mentioned the tax levy, and it's a very nominal amount. The benefit of that is it doesn't create a liability because it's not, generating a tax that, that puts the county in Valley High into that situation where we could be at risk.
It's a placeholder.
Once again, it's the backstop, and based on previous, when this facility was built, you had bonds, you had a lot of other expenses. That just sits in the background, and we said idle, and, I think the county board's current intent is to keep that as idle as it can be in the back, in a backdrop because of the way we're operating with Medicaid, Medicare, even private pay, how you model the bed mix for this facility will tell you, can you make it sustainable? And that's really what it comes down to, is run it like a business. You know, you bring in your revenues, and then you operate within those revenues. And, you know, and if things aren't lining up, well, as business owners and managers, you figure out, how do we bring that into balance? What do we need to do? What do we change within the operations or within the structure to make that a viable, viable, sustainable business?
I wasn't too far off on that burn rate.
Yeah, but that includes, I think some of these numbers include the spending for the memory care. Because prior to that, I think you guys were even ahead a little bit, just in your operations. So the burn rate would
That's
be
true,
slow.
yeah, I forget about things like that.
And the other thing is, that, like this year and last year, we already knew we were gonna be taking a loss because we're only operating at a census of 80.
Right.
So the burn rate seems a little bit higher than it's gonna be, normal. And then when you look at the revenue then that will be generated on the memory care side, it's gonna push that burn rate out a little bit farther too. But you're not far off in the estimate. It's probably closer to, 3.5 if we don't make any adjustments?
Yeah, thereabouts,
Yeah, so not far.
So, so just to think of it in that way, so,
Yeah. And think of the memory care unit, that was an investment, for Valley High. You're gonna spend some money now, but it's gonna have a long-term payoff to help promote that sustainability. And that's what when the decision was made, when it was first contemplated, we had a study that showed, well, first off, the viability of memory care and the need for within this area, within this market, and secondly, was looking at the operations, and the report was very simple in its conclusions on the operations. That, Valley High does not have an expenditure problem; it has a revenue problem, right? And based on that need, based on the viability of a memory care unit within McHenry County, you can use that then to help generate additional supplemental revenues to run this facility. So that was an investment. Take a little hit now, but in the long term, that should pay off. In fact, it will pay off.
Anything else?
All right. Carrie, back to you.
That's it, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Now we roll it back to.
Sure.
You got the floor?
Yeah. Sure. I just want to, Terry, I know you had asked a very important question in the beginning. Does it give you a little bit more insight as to how Valley High is and how it basically is? It's protected. It's protected through your watch, as board policy. You protect it.
All of the funds are protected. I mean, silos.
The one, as we always watch, and Tom is a hawk on this, we are susceptible to the Medicaid reimbursement rate. And as that rate increases, we enjoy it because we have largely, more Medicaid beds than not. But if that drops down and that becomes then something the county or this facility would have to, you would have to supplement, then we have to look at how our revenue is. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Medicaid is favorable to
Yep.
the operating the facility.
Very favorable.
But that's, those are policy decisions made, outside of these walls and outside of the county board.
All right. Then I'll jump into the administrator's report, and I know we were going to try to keep the meeting, well, Carl wanted to keep the meeting moving quickly, so I'll hit high-level stuff, and you guys can ask questions as we go. You'll see in the report there wasn't a ton of things that I updated from a couple weeks ago that we met. Just a few of the numbers that came in for January and December are in your chart. I just want to focus in on 3 or 4 key areas. The first one is the preliminary financial report, which is in your packet. Now, the numbers in this report, at the way that the year shakes out, will change a little bit as the outside audit gets done and things get moved around and cleaned up through the year. So that's why it's called preliminary. It'll be another 2-3 months till they wrap that up, and I'll give you guys a final. So it's kind of more just letting you guys know where we believe the year approximately closed out. We were about a loss of 1.1 million, which we did anticipate, and actually, if that number holds true, we kind of pretty much stuck the landing on that one, is where we saw the potential to be at. as we move into fiscal year '25, the key here is getting that unit, the memory care unit, up and running, and that will help bring the revenues in to offset that loss. So we've got a little bit of delay, but things are moving again, and I'll cover that here in a minute. But what it closed the year out in, then, when you look at memory care unit expenses included and all of the investments and ins and outs, we had about 19.9 million left in the bank as some form of assets, whether that's cash in the bank, investments with our investment firm, and whatnot. Scott and I, Treasurer Kurtz, and our investment broker still get together on a quarterly basis, go through it, gives us an opportunity to look at what is coming up, what is rolling off, and then that way we can make some very strategic financial decisions so that we keep that minimum amount of cash in the bank that you guys have asked for, but also making sure that we're leveraging every asset and dollar that we can, both short and long term. Did I cover that?
You hit it.
I think I might actually start understanding this stuff. So, any questions about the finances? Okay, then let's roll into the memory care unit. A lot of things going on. Artwork came in this week. It's all up on the walls. It's beautiful. The design firm had some great recommendations. The Valley High team picked some great stuff, and it turned out great. The ends of the hallways are all pictures of places and locations within McHenry County, so it kind of gives that hometown feel. We have a picture on one hallway of the Viscounts. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard that term. It is the community marching band for McHenry County from back like 30s and 40s. I had one of the business office people who do the purchasing, she helped me secure all the artwork. We were walking the unit, and she's like, oh my God, my grandpa talked about this. So she took a photo of it, sent it to her mom. Sure enough, he was in this like band from way back when. So we've got a lot of history on the walls as well that already made an impact, and we haven't even put anybody on the unit. So pretty neat. The unit is a little bit of a hot mess right now because we just hung the pictures and did some overhead work, so we'll get it cleaned up, and next time we meet at the end of February, we'll do a tour again so you guys can see it. We made an offer on a memory care unit director that we really liked. We were not able to come to an agreement, so we're kind of back in the marketplace. We've got some really great resumes that have come in, so hopefully within this next round of interviews, we can find our director and get them on board. We've also kind of created this Friday afternoon thing that we're doing as a team. I've got a task force that we put together. So we've started touring other memory care facilities in McHenry County. And we're not going in and pretending like we're, families and looking. We tell them point blank, hey, we're from Valley High. I mean, we've all got the logoed shirts on, so no hiding it anyway. But it's been an interesting thing that I just want to throw out. You go and you visit, and then all of a sudden their director applies. It's kind of, I don't want everybody to think like we're out like, scouting for talent. But I'm not going to say that it hasn't happened either. So today, this afternoon, the team will be going to White Oaks of McHenry. We did Alden of Huntley last week. We've got Cedarhurst planned for next week, and so we're just going to kind of continue to get a feel for what are they doing, what is their price structure, what does their programming look like, and then we come back, and every Tuesday, the task force sits down as a group. We've started meeting on the unit, but we get down as a group and we debrief. Like, what did you like? What did you like? What should we do? What should we not do? And you kind of develop our programming from that. So there's a lot of internal activity that is starting to happen with the memory care unit, but we're still kind of in a holding pattern to be able to bring in the tours from the outside, because we're getting calls left and right about when can we tour. An open house, we don't have a date set for that yet, although we're kind of looking at March for that. So just some of those things are not hardened up yet. The motor on the HVAC system was addressed yesterday, so we should be able to get that inspection completed. That'll check the last box. The fire department one is wrapping up too. We did a call to public health. The architect called and did asking for a friend kind of thing, so you don't really disclose who you are. And you're saying, can we submit the packet for the temporary occupancy without the two pieces? And they said, yeah, which was, I thought that was just a shot in the dark, but they said, yeah, go right ahead. So today, that'll go in, and then we'll submit the other parts. So we're kind of getting to that point where, like, we've been in a lull for a little bit. All of a sudden, it's going to get real crazy again, and then we're ready to March, April, hopefully be ready to open. So we're still, yeah, go ahead.
Can you open the memory care without a director?
We
Or
could,
or is that position required to open it?
we could, because we have people on staff already that meet the requirement. We have applicants that are in the mix that are social workers. One is on staff, one is through a hospice company that have the training, and we could bring them on pretty quick. What we're trying to do is find an RN that's got that blend of skills for that. That way, if the nurse calls in sick or there's a anything medical comes up, you have a backup.
Okay,
If we can't in the next week or two, because we're going to do a round of interviews next week, find that RN, we're going to open it up to social workers. So we will have a director on staff in that role when we open.
okay.
They're going to be key to all the programming. I do not have the time to get this thing, dedicated to open it on the right foot. You got to have somebody to do that.
No, I agree. I just didn't know if there was a state requirement that you actually had to have somebody in that role, or you can move forward while you're still trying to fill it.
You have to have somebody designated for that role, but we already have people on staff that can qualify with that designation, even though they may or may
Okay.
not be someone that would be in that permanently.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yep. So any questions memory care-wise? Okay. Then 2 quick updates, and then I'll talk to you guys about the documents that I sent you that I'm pretty sure you haven't read yet. The leadership team is, they begin in something we do every year, so for the newer board members, every year in January or February, depending on how the year shakes out, we do a kickoff, and we pick a topic, and the leadership team we read the same book, we all talk about it. It's kind of like our leadership development kickoff for the year. And then every other year, we also develop the strategic operating plan for Valley High. So this year's kickoff is on Wednesday of next week. We have a Patrick Lencioni book about employee engagement that we're going to read, and then it just kind of keeps everybody in.
What's the name of it?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that.
Oh,
The Truth About Employee Engagement, or something to that effect.
this is one of his
I-
newer ones.
It is one of his newer ones, and my team is all required. There's a couple that they've all read already. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. If you come onto my leadership team, you're going to get that book handed to you on day 1. So,
And a quiz on day 2.
no, but maybe in the second week. But the whole point of this is to kind of keep everybody talking the same lingo, on the same page, and we'll meet 3 or 4 times in the beginning of this year to develop the strategic plan, and then we'll kind of do check-ins throughout the year on the plan itself and progress. So once my team develops that, you'll get the final version of it. So probably not in February, but in March, you'll get what will be our strategic plan for the next 2 years. And that'll be things like getting the memory care unit up and running, what we're doing for employee engagement, what we're doing to make sure we're financially sustainable. But these are kind of taking what the county board does and then boiling it down into how does Valley High take what the county board's vision for the future is, and how do we operationalize that. So coming soon. If you guys have any thoughts or ideas, feel free to shoot them my way. And what I will do, just so that you can kind of get a feel for it, is I will email you guys out in the next few days the report card of the last strategic plan, so you can see what was in it, what was completed. There are some items that you'll see we put on hold. For example, we decided that we were not going to pursue joining the post-acute network or the preferred provider network for the hospital system out this way. So you'll see it just parked as on hold. It was on the plan, we didn't do it. And then there's a few items you'll see that'll get carried over into the next plan. They're more sustainable type items, not one-off action items. So I'll get that out to you guys in the next week or so, and you can get a feel for it. And then if you have any thoughts, let me know. All right, so let's talk really quickly through the documents that I gave you, why I gave them to you, and what it all means and how it gets used. We'll take the easy ones first, and then I'll cover the compliance plan last. Medicare and Medicaid, this is more FYI. We update these documents every year with the new numbers, the new co-insurance amounts, the new, what you're allowed to keep. These are provided to every resident upon admission. They're hanging up throughout the building. and it's just an overview of the two programs. I cannot tell you how many people that we come into contact that are just coming into the long-term care experience that do not know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. And that one's federal, one's state, one's short-term, one's long-term. And so these handouts really provide that backbone of a quick reference of what does that program mean, who pays for what am I responsible for, what is Valley High going to pay for, and how that all shakes out. So those are more just FYI. Put them on your shelf, put them in your bathroom for reading material, whatever you got to do with it. The facility assessment is the next document. This one is required by public health, and if you use it right, which is what we do, you're supposed to use it as the backbone for making all of your decisions. So what you'll see in that facility assessment is it's kind of a declaration of what types of residents we can serve, right? And so we make sure that you have all the equipment, what your average daily census is, and we break it down all the way to how many admits are on Tuesdays in 24, how many admits are on Fridays. And why would you do that? Because then, if you're using it right, you're supposed to look at it and say, okay, staffing assets, if all my discharges are on Fridays and Saturdays, my discharge planners need to be scheduled for Fridays and Saturdays. So if you're using it correctly, it's supposed to be how you manage your operations. And so it's a huge overview of everything that goes on in the building. You'll see as you get through that document towards the end, there's even a risk analysis. It talks about what types of residents that we have and what types of risk that might be. Then it goes all the way down to EMA has a part in there, which is the risk analysis of cyber, of terrorism, so it's a pretty robust document that's part of the emergency operations plan. Every year it gets updated. Every year the medical director is part of the development of this, as well as the quality assurance team. And what usually will happen is that right at the end of the year, I'll go into hiding and build this report, and then we bring it to quality assurance committee in January, and that's when it gets approved. So this document you have in your hands is the one that was approved 2 weeks ago by the quality assurance committee. I didn't anticipate that you guys would read it from the time I sent it yesterday until this morning, but after you take a chance to look through it, between the Medicaid, the Medicare document, and this document, you should have all the tools you need to answer most of the questions that are thrown at you from your constituents about operations. Now, when you start getting into very specific incidents or specific examples, this is high level, but that is the backbone of all the information you guys need. If you have any questions, if you read it and you're like, I have no idea what this means, or why would you even put this in there? Part of it is it's required. There's nothing in there that's not required. But the other part is maybe give me a call, let me explain it to you. It'll all make sense in the end, I promise you. It is a very robust document. I'm going to tell you it's more robust than most facilities, but we do use our document to plan and to strategize for what's going on in the building, so it's built that way on purpose. Does anyone have any initial questions on the facility assessment? Okay, good. Let me know if you do. The last document I have for you guys, we are required by law to have all board members or owners, or depending on how your corporate structure is, be educated on what the organizational's corporate compliance plan is. This is because we take state and federal dollars. We're over the threshold in the amount, and so it kicks in the requirements of having a compliance plan. Now, I will also tell you that in phase 3 of the requirements of participation, they made it mandatory for just about anybody in long-term care, so most facilities have a plan. Ours is pretty robust, again, like the other one. So what I need for you guys to do is familiarize yourself with what the facility's corporate compliance plan is and what it does. And so that little flyer handout that I stuck into your packet, that's your summary of what the plan does, all right? Tara is our corporate compliance officer. She is the assistant administrator here. It cannot be me. That's the reason why you don't see me as the compliance person. It has to be someone independent of executive leadership, and it has to be someone that could independently come forward to you as a board, to Scott as risk management, to Pete Austin as county administrator, and say, I believe that this is, or this is going on, or whatever. So when we talk about compliance activities, it's pretty broad. Most people think of billing. They think of, Medicare, Medicaid, insurance plans, families, right? It goes way beyond that. It talks about ethics. It talks about abuse. It talks about how data gets used, HIPAA. All of that is incorporated in the compliance plan. We have a quarterly report that gets made to the Quality Assurance Committee by Tara, and then at the end of the year, she does an annual summary. So that way, any concerns that have been brought forward, that come up, that might be something that could be a risk, they get discussed in those quarterly meetings. And Lisa Shamhart from Risk Management is part of our QA team, so she's a participant in hearing what is happening in the building, all right? In your packets that are printed, and then this morning, I emailed you guys a copy of the 2024 annual compliance report, so you can get a feel for what activities are happening here at Valley High. So we had, and I'm required to give you the summary, so I'm checking some boxes here. In 2024, we had 3 total compliance concerns brought forward. All 3 of them were HIPAA related, which is what you're normally going to find here. I mean, with having county auditors, outside auditors, and then multiple people in the business office, reconciling the month-end close every single month, I'm telling you, the finance piece is covered. Where our issues are, there was HIPAA, and normally they're unintended disclosures. So, we had a staff member hand a nursing summary to from one resident to a family member of another by accident. It was handed right back, no breach, but it still counts, right? You're still gonna get it on your log, you're still gonna go ahead and meet with the employee, you're still gonna track it. We had a social media one, which is a massive no-no in long-term care. This was one of those innocent moments. We had a resident pass away, longtime resident, and a CNA, who was her primary caregiver, posted what was really not even a bad photo. It was a very nice photo, and made a comment about, we lost a great friend today. Well, we can't have that. So, again, is it a bad breach? No. Is it a breach? Yes. So we had her take it down. It goes on the log. These are the kinds of things that come up. And then another one was a staff member texted a family member to obtain medical history. Controlled environment, but still qualifies as a compliance-related activity that we want to, we don't want to have happening, because text messaging is not secure. So just kind of give you a feel for what happened last year, what's included in our plan, and then what happens when something is brought forward. And that Tara will begin an investigation. She will follow it from start to finish, depending on what she finds. She brings it to QA committee and or elevates that beyond to what would be the requirement, which is to this board or to county administration. We've kind of got a yeah, fire away.
I'm sorry, I apologize to interrupt, since I got fewer people here or not. So just a couple quick questions. In the first instance, and not a lot of detail, just, was the first instance self-reported? Was the person realized the mistake they made and said, oh, I gotta report this?
A lot of times what happens is it's the nurse that reports that it went on, or the compliance officer, it's brought to them directly. So yeah, we self-report most of this stuff. Let's use the example of the social media one, because it's a little bit easier. Another team member saw it. They know that it is a violation of the policy. This is not something that you're gonna, someone's gonna get severely disciplined for or whatnot, but they understand the gravity of it. They brought it to Tara's attention. Immediately, Tara had him take it down. So it is mostly self-reported. Very rarely do we have anything that gets outside that is reported back in. A couple years ago, we faxed a medical record of the wrong resident to a medical provider. They reported that back in. Their end, they said, we didn't read it, we destroyed the record, but wanted to make you aware of it. So that would be a way that something from outside comes in. Another way would be if, let's just say Carrie and the outside auditors are going through the annual audit, and they find an anomaly that shouldn't be there from billing or whatever. Or maybe we overbilled for services or something like that. They would bring that to our attention, and then Tara would follow the process. And that one would then be reported outside the building, right? We would have to report that to the OIG and to the appropriate authorities. And then, we had, I'll give you an example of something that probably in '23, where we accidentally overbilled for some of our Medicare, and what had happened was there was a computer glitch from the software of the therapy provider, and a modifier, a code, was dropped off, which meant that the services being provided by a PTA were provided by an actual full physical therapist. I think the difference was like $15. So we found it, we reported it. Once we were made aware of it, we figured out what the breadth of it was, we reported it, we paid it back, and then it just kind of ends the process. So there's a lot of different ways in which stuff comes through, but if you're asking me to handicap it, I'd say 85% of it all is self-reported from staff internally.
Good. No, and I commend them for recognizing a mistake and saying, here's what happened. That's important, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. And they're really well educated. If you go right now in the elevators, they have the poster of what you guys were given, and then Tara swaps them out throughout the year. Right around the holidays, we put up the gift giving one that talks about you can't accept a gift over $5, and because families really fall in love with certain caregivers. They absolutely do, especially if you're a long-term resident. They become part of the family, and they always want to give gifts, especially around the holidays. And so, we put that up. It's in the newsletter. So we keep staff really well informed on this. It's not something that happens in the background. It's pretty forward-facing.
And all those posters are, I'm assuming, by HR and by legal and stuff like that?
I haven't really updated them in a while, but not HR, no, I wouldn't say, because they're just like informational, right? It just talks about what is corporate compliance, who do you report to?
Okay.
What is the gift policy, which is HR, and then who do you report to, right? It always lets them know how and who. Because there is the anonymous, we have an anonymous way of reporting, and then
Yeah.
the forward-facing one, so. Any other questions on the compliance plan? All right, then the last thing I'll leave you with. If you guys need to get a hold of me, the two best ways to do it, email or call my cell phone. If you don't have my cell phone number, get it from me before you leave today. If you call my desk, every once in a while, I may go a day or two before I actually sit in that seat again. So I may miss something that's critical and important, and I know you were trying to get a hold of me yesterday. Use that.
My bad.
That's okay. Use the cell phone number, and I will get back to you real quick if you email me or call me on my cell. I might be a little bit delayed in getting to the actual desk phone. 95% of what goes into that desk is sales. Anything that needs to be addressed family-wise ends up with Tara and whatnot, so you could get lost in a sales black hole. And if you don't have my cell phone number, grab me before you leave. I'll get it to you today. That's all I had, Vice Chair.
Sure. Future topics. Do we have any suggestions or ideas for?
I'm just, excuse me, I'm just wondering if Scott has plans to come back again to look at the modeling diagram that we looked at, with the different case mix and all of that with Medicare, Medicaid, and private pay, to just kind of look at those numbers and see what that looks like?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I do.
So that doesn't have to be soon, but I wanted that to be on the agenda.
I was hoping somebody would ask too.
Thank you, because that was gonna be my follow-up question, because I did miss the meeting, and I remember we were talking last year of, we're gonna have to decide what the mixture is, and I don't know if your question was ever answered, so thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, it's just really fun to watch because you can do so much with that modeling just by changing, a couple of numbers here and there, everything changes, so.
That's right. No, I look forward to the opportunity. A couple of things that we're waiting on. Number one is to see finally how fiscal year 2024 ended. You've got a preliminary report. Carrie and her team are in the midst of the audit. These documents actually out of the audit serve as my starting point when I build a model each year and I update it, because these are audited numbers. These are a good, solid place to start, and then from there we'll build it. Secondly, too, is the memory care unit. As now we're getting a little bit more clarity, it's starting to come together. We're going to very soon know what the final numbers are for the build out, and all the artwork and all the incidental costs. We're going to have that ended up as a known entity, and then once he gets the staffing and then the programming, and then we can start to get a better understanding as to the pace in which you can open up the rooms, that's gonna create a revenue stream. So those are a little bit in flux right now. We have, the last time that those have seen the model, we had some assumptions built into it. And we can still go off of assumptions, but I think we're getting closer enough. I'd rather get harder data to build into the model. So those are really the two key components that are kind of waiting and will drive that next reveal of the model. So I'm anticipating probably within, I'd say probably I would say maybe by the April meeting. I'm thinking that we would be in a
Yeah.
really good place. If I could get it sooner by the March meeting, I don't know if that
Well,
would be
I
soon
think
enough.
April sounds better because
Yeah.
Tom will have a better idea of what the capacity, and occupancy is gonna
Yeah.
be for the memory care unit,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and the modeling we did on the memory care unit financials is all off, and it's off in the right direction, which is a good thing. So when I did it all, I based it off of an average room rate of $250 per day. As we kind of been going around and doing our tour, it's becoming abundantly clear that we are way low in the market, which we knew there was going to be a tweak. I didn't realize it was going to be it may make the revenue almost increase by a third. So we got to get that also finalized. And there's also been an interesting question that I didn't consider that that got brought forward this week, which is, are we going to be holding any beds for short-term rehab for people that have memory deficit problems to then go back home? And we had talked about it, short-term rehab for people that were on the unit, that they could stay on the unit and do that. We didn't think about it from the perspective of there's an unmet need in the community that is it's a real problem, and I never thought of it. Where do people who have those types of behaviors and needs go to get the rehab and therapy that they're in a secure place? And what's happening is a lot of them are getting sent home. Okay, and they're not ending up in a skilled facility. And then there's a secondary subset of problems, right? They fall at home, and now it's a hip, and now it's changing need. And so we're kind of toying around with the idea of dedicating a couple beds for that purpose, to fill that need in the community, which is going to change a little bit of that modeling. So again, I think April's good because that'll help us ferret this out a little bit. I've already talked to our therapy provider, and they are all green lights on this. And it's kind of coming through them that the need is greater than you realize. So, I think it's going to change the picture, but it's, again, in the right direction. It's not going to make it worse. It's going to make it a lot better.
You're talking about a person who has maybe some type of form of Alzheimer's or dementia that breaks an arm and needs rehab, and and they need that rehab for a week or 2 weeks, and you'd be able to provide that within your setting.
Yep.
And that's it's missing in the community?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't have the ability to, the community's got memory care, and the community's got
Sure.
rehab, but no one has married the two things together, and then also has the ability to offer programming. More than likely,
Okay.
from what I'm being told though, is that once the family sees the benefit of the programming, they will transition over to a more permanent type situation.
Right,
Because they'll
right.
see how much the resident flourishes by having that in place. So,
That was my next question was gonna be.
yeah, it's another referral
Okay.
opportunity.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yep.
Okay.
More to come.
I
on that.
didn't want this to sound crass, but you are a self-funding business entity, and that's an opportunity, to showcase for your facility and what it does.
Oh,
So, okay, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I was hired 15 years ago, Chairman Kaler at the time told me to run it like a business, and I've taken that to heart, so.
Okay, thank you.
I have a 10 o'clock, you have to excuse me, please.
We all done there?
I am done, sir.
I don't think we have reason for executive session, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second by?
Here.
All in favor?